Trying to do a, Sorry, I had to fix something on the stream here really quick, Pengy, but I think we're ready to go. Pengy, do you want to introduce our first player?
Yes, in the bottom left of Everdream, we have the red Protoss player for Alpha X. It's Asuna.
And Asuna's opponent at the top right-hand side in the blue, representing Team Liquid and Germany, it is TLO.
Deutschland!
Now, some of you may be... Go ahead,
sorry.
Well, I was just going to say really quickly, some of you may be a little bit confused. Wait a minute, TLO's from Germany, Namshar's from Sweden. Why are they playing in the North American qualifiers? This is some garbage. And the answer is, guys, anyone who currently resides in that region or has a passport from that region is allowed to compete. So TLO currently living in Canada, I believe, as is Namshar, actually. So both of them able to compete in NA because they live here, and that's why they're representing their home countries, of course. But I believe technically in the competition, they're representing in Canada.
Asuna already busting out an early-ish forge. Not a forge first, but Asuna, I was going to talk about this a little bit. He plays so weird. He's going for the full wall off. Oh my god, Asuna. It's his first time qualifying. But Asuna's been very good at doing this kind of stuff for a very long time. Asuna is always the player that you do not want in your qualifier bracket. He is so awful to play against because this is what he'll do to you. Look at him with this perfectly positioned wall. You can tell he's practiced this so hard. TLO pulling all of his drones off the line with the exception of 4. And the Cybercore has more HP than the Gateway does, so this is not going to go down at all. It also builds faster, so really the best way to wall in this cannon, this Cybercore is going to really buy him all the time he needs to get these cannons up. TLO is not going to be able to deny this, and this is definitely an overcommittal. I feel like TLO honestly had to just sack the low ground, but maybe he's about to prove me wrong. There's Lings out? Is he going to be able to break this?
Wow, that's a really tough question here. The wall really interesting now from Asuna as he has lost control of not just one cannon, but his second cannon as well. So a full drone surround on that second cannon going to do a fairly decent amount of damage. Of course, the Queen is now out, but all the Lings are down. As the third cannon finishes up, the second cannon is going to go down. The cannon's not getting as many kills as they had previously, but this full health cannon should be able to take down a fair few drones. Remember, this probe still alive from Asuna. It is going to go back home, so it looks like Asuna's done here. He's not going to put any more pressure on. I feel like Asuna overextending a little bit here, Pengy. I think he's just being a little too greedy, letting all these cannons finish, letting the Cybercore finish, and not getting as many drone kills as maybe he had hoped. And the natural, of course, still stands for TLO.
I don't know, Creighton. I feel like that was a really good trade for Asuna.
Okay.
TLO down to 12 workers. He's only got a single queen. He doesn't really have much in the way of injects going down. He's got his own natural coming up. It's a bit of a weird one. The more I look at this, the more I feel like it might actually end up being a little bit of a wash.
Sure.
We'll see if the Adept can get anything done that he's got chronoing out right now, but I think, really, though, that did enough for Asuna. It didn't win him the game, but I feel like it did enough. I didn't expect TLO to actually hold that. I thought with the way he was committing, especially with cannons finishing, I thought that he was essentially dead in the water, but TLO showing that he's done the math. He ladders on NA, so he's definitely played against Asuna, and really... You don't see, so Asuna's awkward because he's not one of these one tricks, right? Like Asuna is one of these guys who does all of these weird builds, but he has like a million of them. So it's very, very hard to play an individual game against Asuna because you never really know what's going to come, but you know it's going to be something like this. So I think TLO probably a little bit mentally prepared. Let's see if this Adept can get a couple more worker kills. The worker count has evened out, but again, TLO has not yet been able to afford a second queen.
Yeah, that Adept going to go down without getting much done at all. In fact, not great target firing there from Asuna, who doesn't even get a single drone with that Adept. And now we're going to see the last of these pylons finishing up, or the last of the pylons getting destroyed by TLO. So Asuna's not going to have any map presence anymore. Finally, TLO starts work on that second queen. Still no third base for him, of course, but Asuna's natural is finished. Asuna even on probes right now, which is not generally where you want to be as a Zerg player. Stalker's out, Adept, Zealot's out to finish the wall, and a very early +1 from Asuna. Now, Pengy, how do you feel about the early +1 from Asuna when there's no real army, so to speak of, on the ground?
I kind of feel like Asuna, I might be leaning much to the whole Asuna's cheese me a lot of times mentality, but I feel like he's just going to go off 2 bases. I feel like he's planning for a push with this +1. He's played this game a million times. He's this is one of those things that I talk about sometimes in games like this, right? Like, he's definitely been in this situation a lot more times than TLO has been, which means that he knows the calculations a lot better, most likely. So I think that he may have sort of used that Adeptus Scout and gone, oh, all right, if I make a bunch of Zealots, I'm going to win the game. Because TLO, he does have additional queens up now, but it took him so long to get even a second queen up. The third base is coming down finally, but he hasn't really had a ton of larva to work with. And yeah, it's going to be 8-gate charge slots with +1, and I don't know how this is going to go. I mean, I thought TLO was dead the first time, so I don't want to call it or anything, because it's obviously, with the Roach Warren coming out, he has the ability to hold this for sure. We'll have to see. He's not actually going to be able to use all of these Warp Gates at once, is Asuna. He's going to be a little bit supply blocked. I think he has enough for 4 Zealots to come on in, but 1 pylon on the way. He's going to be building a few more pylons behind this. The +1 is going to make this so hard to hold, though.
Yeah, +1 charge lots. I mean, look, if you don't play against Protoss ever, guys, charge lots are scary on their own. +1 charge lots are so terrifying. They remind me of, like, Marines once they get up to 1-1. They're just so beefy. The War Prism, by the way, was spotted, so TLO absolutely knows this is coming. He's had plenty of time to work on roaches. He's got 4 on the map, 8 more coming out, so a total of 12 roaches. But the charge lots are here. The Queen's gumming up the works on top of the ramp, going to slow these charge lots from getting in. Let's see if Asuna can get the surface area he needs to really take down TLO here, Pinky.
I really like the way that TLO is splitting up his units. He's not allowing the Zealots to all sort of snowball in with each other. This is actually a really good hold by TLO so far. It looks like he might have had just enough of an economy to hold this. Still more Zealots making quick work of some of those units at the back line, forcing a drone pull off the line, but they were weak enough to actually pick them off. Asuna, though, continuing to use a lot of Zealots. The +1 is allowing them to break through these roaches, but the roach count might just be a little bit too high, Creighton. TLO looks like he might have actually done it. He might have actually held this absurd 2-stage all-in from Asuna.
Yep, the Mad Lad. The Mad Lad actually did it. Asuna completely destroyed now. Now, here's the real question for you. TLO has 30 army supply on the map. He's got 12 roaches and a handful of queens, a couple lings as well. Does he push across the map and just go? And the answer, he's answering it for us right now. No, he's not doing that.
I don't think
he's grabbing roach speed.
Yep. With the third base up, he's got plenty of workers, and behind this, you know that Asuna is super committed. Asuna was on 1 gas. He isn't in a position to do anything in the near future, and TLO understands that. So TLO, he can take this opportunity to get roach speed. He could probably go up to Hydras if he really wanted. If he really wanted to be cheeky, he could just throw down a Spire, and he's going to be fine. Asuna, I actually thought that was going to be a much scarier push than it was, but I counted TLO out a little bit too early, and you know what? Dario is... There's a reason why Dario is a legend, and there's a reason why his legend has persisted for so many years.
That micro, I'm sure, is something a lot of Zerg players are going to want to take a look at in that natural and main while he was just defending against the +1 charge lot all in. Really nice, as you pointed out during the fight, really nice splits between the queens there, the roaches on the bottom, never allowing a lot of zealots to get all in the same place at the same time and get a full surround on a queen or a full surround on some roaches and really tear through them the way charge lots wants to do. In an ideal world, of course, those charge lots are going to get a full surround on a roach and take it down just as their charge recharges, and then they can charge again onto something else. Did you ever play World of Warcraft, Pengy?
Oh, yes.
Just like a charge warrior in World of Warcraft, where you want to like charge and take about 3 seconds to hack somebody down, and then your charge is off cooldown.
Imagine if charge zealots stunned their target when they landed.
Now that would be something. StarCraft 2 mods, if you're looking for a new project to mod in
right now. Monk, don't do it.
So a third base here for Asuna, and as you correctly predicted, TLO going up to Hydras. Does he go to Lurkers this game, or is Roach Hydra going to be plenty to drive Asuna back?
I honestly feel like a Roach Hydra push could just end the game. We'll see exactly how TLO wants to play this. There is always the threat that if you leave Asuna alone for like 6-7 minutes, he might be able to put himself in a position where he can cobble together a pretty decent army, and then it becomes a little bit more of a situation where if TLO takes a bad fight, he could still lose the game. So maybe he decides to go for a push to try to nip that in the bud and sort of take down Asuna before he gets to that point. But also, TLO is a very, very strong macro player. If he decides to just chill out and play defensively, I still think he's in a very, very solid position. Asuna has good mechanics, which is one of the reasons why his cheeses are so scary.
Right.
But he's definitely not a player who plays super macro games a lot of the time, but it doesn't look like we're going to get there. TLO moving out. Looks like he's actually going to go for a little bit of a drop here. I actually like this a lot.
Oh, yeah, 5 Overlords here, and there it is, 5 Dropper Lords on the way now for TLO. He's gotten a full scout of the main base, by the way, with this Overseer earlier, and actually gooped the Immortal, so it won't be able to come out in time. Might just barely make it before this drop hits, but the Overlord not going to be in place, and as you said, the infrastructure for Asuna is in a really weird spot, where he's only got, he's got a bunch of gateways here, but not really a whole lot of supporting units. He's working on Storm now, but nothing else, and here comes this giant drop, as does the pressure on the third base, and I think TLO can win on both fronts.
Yeah, I really think that's a possibility. Asuna pulling out of position here. He finally decides to split his army in half, which is not going to be exactly the result he's going to want. TLO has so many units, almost more than double the army supply, even if he does have that upgrade disadvantage at the minute. Sometimes you just have so much stuff that it doesn't matter, and Asuna is going to be completely incapable of holding this push, unfortunately for him. TLO looking very, very solid in the first game.
Those 2 magical letters are dropped, and TLO brings Germany their first victory here of the day. Congratulations to TLO. Well played there. Holding 2 all-ins is not easy, especially when they're from a pro all-inner like Asuna. As you said, he has done an incredible job, not just the last couple of years, but especially in this tournament, of surprising some players who didn't prepare for him. Take a minute, guys, if you can, go to the Liquipedia page and look at who Asuna has beat so far in this game. He's currently sitting at a 3-2 record, and he has defeated Pili Pili, which I think is probably expected. He 2-0'd Estrella, and then he 2-0'd Rob. So his opponents have not been like only the lowest people in the pool. He's been putting on a really good show with some very experienced players. So really well done by TLO to hold that off. Do you think Asuna's going to cheese again here in game number 2, Pengy?
Yes.
I didn't even finish my sentence. That's how confident you were.
Yes. I'm sure that Asuna has played macro games here and there. I'm 100% sure that he's capable of playing a macro game, because a lot of the time that's you become a super scary all-inner when you have the mechanics to back it up, right? And that's why he's able to sort of pivot from that cannon rush into a follow-up all-in, blah, 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 blah. Like, he's practiced his mechanics. But he's also Asuna, and I don't actually know if I've ever seen him play a straight-up macro game. I think I once lost to him going super fast mass carrier. And I think that's the only time I've seen him not play aggressive. And I'm not saying that he doesn't do it. I'm just saying personal bias and personal experience has been me losing a lot of games to Asuna within the first 8 minutes.
So somewhere on the continuum between Turkey Dano and, like, innovation, he's definitely further down to the Turkey Dano side of things.
Oh, yes. And he's not just a cannon rusher guy either. He does a lot of walk. He'll do crazy things in all sorts of the matchups. And TLO is a bit of a creative connoisseur himself. I'm sure it's the meme that's been done to death for many, many years at this point. But that also, on a very tangible, in a very tangible way, makes his brain is more wired to sort of calculate these weird positions and like be able to play in those positions, because some of these macro players do really badly in games that where like they hold the all in, but it's like pretty even afterwards, and it's like a really awkward situation. Like, some people who are not used to those positions do very, very badly in those kinds of situations, even if they're a little bit ahead. TLO is not that guy.
A really good assessment there of where TLO is. Well, let's see what Game 2 has to offer. I'm sure it's going to be wacky, wild, and wonderful as we hop on to Eternal Empire LE. Spawning. In the bottom left-hand side in the blue from Team Alpha X, representing kind of America, it is Asuna.
Facing off against the man in the top right, the red Zerg player for Team Liquid. It's the Wunderwinch, Dr. Dario TLO.
Well, good news here. Gateway on the low ground for Asuna. It's obviously going to be an honorable macro game this time. No question that you could do anything untoward by putting a gateway on the low ground. Obviously, it's just going to be a gateway into Fast Nexus, and then I imagine we're going to see Asuna pushing for a third base. A long economic game in store. Do you agree with that assessment, Pengy?
Oh yeah, I'm expecting Asuna to probably make 6 or 7 Nexuses before he actually makes an attacking unit. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and I think he'll probably go for all like 3/3/3 upgrades first. You know, it's an honorable game. No rush 20, as they say.
I feel like I need a monocle and like a cup of tea and a top hat. Oh, yes, yes.
I love
Honorable game. Yes, right.
Asuna just took his probe and just like stopped it on top of the ramp, and TLO just immediately reflexively pulled a drone and was like, nope, no, we're not doing this. Absolutely not. But nice little fake. And that's also a nice little thing you can do. It doesn't really get you much, but that's probably about 20 minerals that Asuna gets from denying a little tiny bit of mining. And you can do that when you have a reputation as somebody who it does things like walls off the top of the ramp with 3 pylons. But that's not going to be what goes on this game. We do see the Cyber Core finishing up, which means that now we get to see what the tech choice is going to be from Mr. Asuna. Very, very curious. Nothing just yet. I'm going to say Twilight. He strikes me as a Twilight kind of guy.
Okay, I'm going Stargate. I was wrong. And yeah, well, as soon as it comes down, Stargate. Now I got a question for you here, Pengy, and I hope you can enlighten us as a Zerg sort of pro. Talk to me a little bit about Overlord timings. When do you move your Overlord into your opponent's base to scout?
So generally, when I'm playing ZVP, it's you kind of just like leave it close enough to the high ground area. If you put it on the natural, you wait to see what comes out of the gateway. It's like, all right, if it's a stalker, then you just go to the high ground. If it's an adept, you send it into the main. TLO, he's playing against Asuna, so he decides, you know what? No, I want to be able. Regardless, I need to see what's going on. So instead of rallying it to the natural, he rallied it towards the main. He confirms the Stargate and then backs on out. And really, that's just if you see a stalker and you're not able to scout, sucks. But you kind of know that they're trying to hide something. So even that is information.
Sure.
And from there, you can sort of make an educated guess on what you think is going to be coming your way. So TLO saw that Stargate, and now the question is what Asuna is going to do to follow up. And now, I don't necessarily expect him to do a 2-base all-in. He doesn't have to do a 2-base all-in, but, you know, people, the more bases are on the map, the more people laugh at you when you say all-in, but 3-base all-ins of Protoss are a very real thing.
Oh, yeah.
You can be put all-in on more things than just on economy, like if you don't go for any upgrades, if you let your tech fall very far behind and you're sitting on maybe half saturation on the third, that still can count as an all-in. We'll see what he decides to go for, though.
Yeah. TLO grabbing his third base in a very unorthodox position here, grabbing a third base at the 3 o'clock position instead of the, I would say, almost standard, certainly standard, third base at the inside 2 o'clock or inside 1 o'clock position there. Bit of an odd choice. Pengy, I hate to keep leaning on you so much, but when TLO makes an interesting choice like this, I've got to ask, what is he thinking here, expanding down south instead of going for the more common triangle base pattern?
I guess my assumption would be, it gives him a lot easier access to defend this Selnaga tower, I guess.
Okay.
A little bit of a weird situation. At the same time, though, if he feels very comfortable taking this third, right? Like, provided, let's say, I don't think it's going to go super long sooner, but, like, let's say that the game went super long, or even just into the mid-game with, like, a lot of pressure trying to deny, like, a fourth base, right? It's a lot easier to defend the third base than this, so you're starting to mine out one of the bases that's a little bit more exposed. So that's kind of nice. I think it's probably to do with the Zelnaga Tower, personally, but I don't know. This is interesting base placement for sure by Mr. Dario.
Huh. Yeah, I rarely see that happening, so a bit interesting. Oracle's going to get chased away here from Zoo. Those Oracles, by the way, completely feckless this game. What was that?
Fast fourth base by TLO.
Yeah, wow. Goodness gracious. Okay, so these Oracles, by the way, from Asuna, as I was saying, just haven't done anything yet. Literally zero kills on either of them. The Adepts are where he's going to try and get some damage done here. And with this odd third base from TLO, he's going to be a long ways away from any reinforcing Lings that do want to come out. Luckily, the Lings are here just in time, and the Adepts will get pushed away. And, oh, actually, a really nice surround here. The Adepts not shading away for Asuna. Asuna, shade your Asuna, your Adepts have this power called Shade. There. Oh, my God, he's leaving him to die. Oh my God, he just ran it.
There, so he wasn't actually able to shade out because of the cooldown. A bit of a questionable decision. I do want to point out, by the way, Asuna has cut workers at 44. This is a fake third base. He is going for what is essentially a 2-base all-in with a third Nexus that's going, hey, TLO, look at me! Look, I'm playing macro! And in reality, that is, in fact, not the case. Many more gateways coming on up. It's looking like another +1 push with charge lots, but this time, the power of Archons are on Asuna's side.
Okay. Okay.
Oh my god, Dario's going 5 base. Dario, this is a little much, buddy. A little much.
That was what I wanted to talk to you about, because a traditional 5th base Zerg timing is that there's no real traditional 5th base Zerg timing. You kind of, at that point, you got to kind of like play out the game, right, and see where things are.
The mineral line being empty. Asuna has restarted probe production. He was not making probes for a solid 2 minutes. I don't think this is like. I feel like he kind of has to go. Like, TLO at this point has such an economic position that if Asuna doesn't push, he's giving him a very, very, very free pass to just make a lot of drones and snowball away with the game.
Zealot's going to run on by this 5th base, not even going to scout it, because why would you, right? The Spore Crawler going to go down. Pressure in the main now from Asuna. A big Zealot warp in here. Queen 1 goes down, but there are plenty of Banelings here from TLO. The Archons, of course, don't give a dang about Banelings. The Queen's focus firing down the Oracle. The Oracle will finally go down. Oh my god, the Oracle at the last second as the Queen picks it off. 15 drones have gone down now as the Zealots get on the 3rd base here. TLO being so greedy this game. Is this enough damage from Asuna, though?
Yeah, Asuna's cut worker production once again. He's back at 44. I guess he lost a couple. TLO just so greedy in this game. Like a big misread from him, and Asuna capitalizing in a big, big way. Now we have drones pulled against an Archon. Never what you want to see, and that's going to be a Jeej. Asuna tying up the series 1-1.
I feel like I need a Tylenol and about an hour to rewatch that replay.
Oh, yeah, I don't... Man, I mean... I feel like it's so you feel bad as a caster because it feels lazy every time you say that TLO is creative or does wonky things, but like he does his own thing a lot of the time, and it's his style. It wins him a lot of games. I don't know if I like going 5 base at 6 minutes against a player like Asuna. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of that plan.
That's. I don't know there's much to say about that game besides what we've said. What an odd choice, honestly, from both players, as we can see. The fake 3rd base from Asuna that wasn't a fake 3rd base, but then was a fake 3rd base again. God, these guys are both like... I feel like they're both like Job Bluth right now, like trying to get into the Magic Academy, but just their tricks falling a little bit short, you know? Everything like just not quite right.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a weird game for sure, but I mean, this is probably the series I was the most excited for, except for maybe Deep Silky today, just because I love watching weird stuff, you know, like,
oh sure,
SC2 is a beautiful game, even when you're watching, like, I mean, you can watch 10 games of Biotank versus Mutiling Bane, and it's still going to be enjoyable to watch that, but there's just something about watching random weird stuff that you don't see in the GSL that's just very enjoyable.
There's definitely... Yes. So, I feel like we have a lot of... I don't talk about this very often, but I do feel like there are distinct, like, tiers of StarCraft viewers. There are people who watch every single series every day. They go back and watch the replays. Guys like you and I who are, like, you know, way into it, and it's our primary hobby. There are the next people who watch the GSL and maybe, like, DreamHack Finals and stuff. And then, you know, people who tune in every now and again to see something. So there is a reason those games are so cool, because for players who don't tune in all the time, it's really interesting to see a game like this that you really would never see in the GSL or a DreamHack Finals or something. So there's always a little bit of excitement around these players and around games like that. So there's something to be said for how fun it was. I kind of hope Game 3 is a bit more... I don't know if it's going to be standard with Asuna, but at least a bit more of a... where the players have a chance to show how talented they really are.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like Asuna, in a way, is showcasing his primary talent, which is, like, builds. Like, he's not a guy who copies builds. He makes his own builds. He's part of a crew of Chinese players that work together on builds. Mm-hmm. It's not a cabal of like every Chinese player, but like he has a group. I know this because Sakura was in that group when he was on Psystorm, and
sure,
Sakura leaned on these guys a lot to help him prep for his China Team League game matches, where he also took out players who would be perceived to be much better than him sometimes, just off the back of really weird builds. And I feel like Asuna is in a way showcasing his primary talent, I would say, which is just creativity and coming up with a build that the opponent hasn't seen. And, you know, it's really underestimated, and we talk about it with Haas sometimes, but it's really underestimated because especially in the early stages of the game, especially against Protoss all-ins, you have all the calculations in your brain as a Zerg player. You're like, all right,
Right.
The like back in the day, it's like, all right, so the Marjorie build is gonna hit at this time, and I need
Right.
exactly this many units. The Roachborn goes down at this time. You know exactly what you're gonna prep for because you played that build 100 times because there's a bunch of people on ladder who only know how to do that build. But like when you're playing against people like Asuna, it's like, all right, this is a build I've never seen before. I don't know when it's gonna hit. I don't know what he's gonna have. And you just kind of have to do your best to work with the knowledge that you do have. And Asuna does a pretty good job at limiting the scouting that the opponent's going to have as well. So it makes it very, very hard, especially if you've never played against that.
It's like the Wild West of StarCraft. Or like, do you remember in like 2011, 2012 when the game first came out, and there was GSL and MLG and stuff, but nobody knew what the hell they were doing? I don't know if you do this, Penky. Do you ever go back and watch the really old VODs?
Yeah.
How fun is it to watch the casters like losing their minds about like, oh my god, he's moving infestors up the ramp, and now we're like, this is the worst game I've ever seen.
For me, what I love is just like how bad all the players are. Like I watched one recently, which was players that I'd honestly never heard of in the GSL in season 1, and it's like the guy, like the Protoss player, like built his forge at 11 minutes, but like put it at his 3rd base while it was being pushed by Marines, and then went shields upgrades or something. Like it's great. I love it.
Oh, well, let's get into the game, and then we can reminisce a little more about some of this weird stuff that's been going on in StarCraft for years. All right, and we are ready to roll here. Spawning in the top left-hand side of Death Aura LE in the blue, representing Team Alpha X, it is Asuna.
Facing off against the red Zerg player who might be a little less greedy this game, I would wager. It's going to be the red Zerg player, TLO.
So, Pengy, if you go back in time, and can choose like any game that people are like, oh, it was so good, that was actually garbage.
Oh, that's a hard question.
It's a really hard question. You can take a minute to think about it if you want.
Probably the first GSL finals with Fruit Dealer.
Okay.
The game. Oh, so the context of the games even now is really interesting because Fruit Dealer was doing a lot of stuff in that GSL season that has become standard, but nobody did. The big one that I think about was Hatch First. He was the first person to ever standardize Hatch First, and everyone was always like, wow, I mean, why don't you just go kill him? So then a bunch of players tried to just go kill him, and they couldn't because he was Fruit Dealer.
Right.
And he was, hatcheries are good, I get larva. But like the games themselves aren't very good. For me, my favorite thing about watching old games is not like the very beginning. I do love the very beginning because it's fun to just like laugh at these players and be like, I'm so much better in 2020 than these players were in 2010.
Right.
But
right.
I really like reminiscing about 2011, 2012, when every now and then, like the game calmed down and you had your standard builds, but then every now and then someone would figure out a build and like they'd take it to a tournament and just win. Like, do you remember when the Slayers Terrans just showed up at MLG with the Blue Flame Hellion drop and nobody had been using Hellions like at all for all of StarCraft?
MLG and Providence 2012.
Hellions. Yep. 4 Hellions dropping in every player's main in every matchup, roasting like 20 workers and winning every game. Like, that was so sick.
That is exactly the example I was about to reach into my pocket for, because that is one of my favorite StarCraft memories of all time. And I'll tell the story because we have a Stargate opener from Asuna, but it does look a little bit slow here. Phoenix first. It's been spotted, though, by TLO, so he knows it's coming. He should be ready for it. Yeah, MLG Providence 2012 was one of my favorite experiences ever. I actually didn't go, but I lived in Boston at the time, which is about an hour away. So as the event was occurring, or just before the event was occurring, I put out, like, on the StarCraft Reddit, I said, hey, if anybody's going to MLG Providence and doesn't have a hotel, come sleep on my couch or my floor, like, bring a sleeping bag, and then you can just drive to Providence. It's just only an hour away. So in my apartment in Boston, I had, like, 6 guys show up who were just, like, random StarCraft fans from around the Northeast. And, of course, I was watching back home, so then we'd come home every night and have some drinks and talk about how freaking crazy everything was at the event. And that was the event, like, where Slayers went nuts.
I mean, we still do follow 7 streams at the events, but I remember, like, the early days of, like, MLG TV, just, like, having to use that weird client to, like, follow everything.
God, that was weird.
Oh man, good times, good times. I miss the MLG days. Like massive double elimination brackets. They were a nightmare to run, and they would always run super late. And like they weren't the greatest to watch because of scheduling issues, but they created some awesome storylines.
Oh, they really did. They really did. Man. Of course, I wouldn't trade what we have now for anything in the world. Stability is so worth it.
Oh. Now,
although, speaking of weird stuff,
yep.
Asuna's going double Stargate again.
It's not the weirdest thing we've seen out of him.
No.
But he is hiding the Phoenixes, which is already a little bit cheeky. I'm going to check TLO's vision real quick. He has seen one Stargate.
Right, so he saw that Stargate very early.
So I actually think it's a little bit sloppy that Asuna isn't sending one Phoenix around to look at to go after. Oh, he is. Never mind. I'm dumb. Asuna is smart. Yeah. So this is actually pretty cute, and we'll see exactly what he decides to go for here. Behind this, is it going to be charge lots? Is it going to be glaive adepts? I feel like glaive adepts actually work really, really well on the ground with this kind of a composition. At this point in time, we don't have a Twilight though. And it's looking like he's actually committing to more than just 44 workers this time. He's going up to 51 already. And this is a bit of a committal here onto these links from TLO. It's not going to manage to get too much done. But yeah, Asuna playing a longer game so far.
Weird. I mean, just weird.
I mean, in the war, I believe Artosis coined this phrase in 2011 or something. But the cheesiest thing a cheeser can do is macro, right?
That's absolutely right. Well, Asuna's going to move out with these Phoenix, of course. They haven't been spotted yet going down south, but TLO's going to make it in. Oh, no. There's nothing here.
Yeah, he actually showcased a really, really cool thing you can do against Adept walls. The Adept model is a tiny bit smaller than the Zealot. If you spam move command, the Lings will slowly push it out of position and allow the Lings to eventually go through. So 9 worker kills there for TLO. A nice start. Asuna this time not on 44, so he's now back to around 2 base saturation. There's a fleet beacon. Oh boy, it's going to be carriers.
Very early, essentially a 2 base carrier push, even though he's on 3 here.
Oh,
TLO going for mass Ling run bys. Is this the right move from TLO?
He's trying to push through this Zealot. He's not quite going to be able to make that work. He has to end up killing it. The wall off there is pretty good there by Asuna. The Oracle's going to be able to add just enough damage here to take this out. Not a great trade there from TLO. We do have one Void Ray on the way. I'm waiting. Please be Flux Veins. Please, like, you're Asuna. Like, you're the king of weird stuff. Be Flux Veins. I want to see... Oh. Okay.
It's not. Dang. This is the first time I've ever been disappointed at how their players not being weird enough with double Stargate out of their main base.
I like how aggressive TLO's being, to be honest, especially against the double Stargate play.
He's going to Baneling bust down this Cyber Core.
Stargate purely from the Phoenix count, but constantly applying this pressure. Unfortunately, he mistimes the Banelings a little bit. Can't quite break through. There's a couple more Banelings here that are gonna give him a lot of extra damage on this army, but just barely enough units here for Asuna. But no, more Lings show up. Ends up being a bit of a wash once again. TLO really trying to apply some pressure, but he's not spamming Lings super hard or anything. He's got 68 workers at home. He's still droning a little bit. He's getting +2. He's getting Infestors up, which is going to be very, very good against this Sky Toss army.
Yep.
But I feel like a lot of this game is going to end up coming down to whether or not TLO can deny the 4th base and for how long.
Okay, so TLO has seen the fleet beacon. I just checked that. I didn't realize that earlier. He scouted it somehow. I don't know how he got in there. But he does know that he's going to be up against carriers, and he's certainly seen them now. Jeez. Infestor's the right choice. How many Infestors is always what I feel like is always the problem, right? How do you know how many Infestors to go for if you're just up against an unnamed, unnumbered mass of carriers?
I mean, honestly, like, Infestors are a bit of a weird unit where it's like, there's not like a specific number you necessarily want to be going for. It's like, you want to make sure you have enough Hydras, which is usually just by feel. And then whatever is, like, however much gas you have left goes into Infestors. And
okay.
I do really like that he's already going into Burrow, already going into Neural Parasite. If Asuna gets overconfident here and gets a little bit cocky, there's no Robo, so not really any detection except for the Oracle, which is, I mean, it's not the most reliable way to deal with Infestors. If TLO parks those Infestors in, like, the middle of the map, and manages to get some neuroparasites down on these carriers, that could be a huge win for him. And then from there, that's an opportunity where you can really just kind of counter push, take advantage of that massive swing in army supply, and just try to win the game.
I feel like this is going to be another one of those games that's really going to come down to a final fight. I think the players can sort of dip and duck and dodge as much as they want, and there's just not going to be a lot of openings, right? You got a 4-base Zerg player, and especially on Death Aura, where there's 1 entrance, 2 entrances, maybe 3 total entrances to the bases to defend. And even if Asuna goes for 4 bases here, still fairly easy to defend. By the way, Burrowed Ling here at the 4th, so cute from TLO. Just little things everywhere. But I think no matter how many cute little things we see, I think this is going to end up coming back to the end of the game. There's just going to be one big fight here, and it's going to come down to who can control. Can TLO get the neural parasites off, or can Asuna focus fire those infestors down before they can take out too much of his army supply?
We saw Neeb go for a Sky Toss composition in the earlier series against Silky. We'll have to see whether or not Asuna goes for a similar composition. He is focusing a lot more on the carriers so far. Neeb, of course, kind of had a couple to anchor the army, but really didn't focus on them too much. But TLO also not really going for the mass spores, so the Tempests are not as necessary for Asuna. Carriers are hard to push into. Oh, man, I mean, really not. There is a Robo coming up. There's still no Observer. TLO could go in and try to get some Abducts off, or some Neuroparasites off, but the Hydra count's really not that high. More coming in from behind. He is picking off quite a few. Okay, here we go. And the Neural Parasites come on down, and that's going to be really, really... Where is the Oracle? The Oracle's down, actually. Focused it down to TLO, and that's a really nice engagement by him. Gets so many units, and he's got so many of these Hydras still alive.
That was gorgeous. That was exactly what TLO needed to do. Oh my god, Microbial Shroud. Oh, we're seeing it. It's happening. Clip this shit. Microbial Shroud saving these Hydralisks. It looks like there might be enough for TLO to keep pushing through here. Unbelievable. Unfortunately, his infestors now out of energy for the neural parasites, and 4 carriers are still here.
But does TLO identify that? Yes, he does. He starts to turn around, realizes there's no more fly boys coming his way, and he's going to be able to move a little bit further forward. More and more red streaming across the map. Lings, Hydras, oh my, going for a little bit of an accidental burrow there, but that's not going to buy Asuna anywhere near enough time. Rebuilding this many interceptors is going to take forever. No carriers are close to finishing up, but TLO, happy to take the slight little win there. He's trades efficiently and decides, you know what? Let's back on off. All we need to do is keep Asuna off of that 4th base.
Interesting read from TLO there. If I was playing, I would have been more aggressive and gone in under those carriers, and that's why I'm not a pro player. Why did TLO back away there, even though he must have known the carriers were out of interceptors, right? He just didn't want to take the additional engagement and put the risk on?
Yeah, he might have just been playing a little bit more, a little bit safe, to the point where he wasn't sure maybe if 2 or 3 more carriers had spawned. Or, yeah, there was probably just the calculation of, you know what, as long as Asuna doesn't ever get a 4th base up and running, the carrier army really isn't that scary. Like, you can really trade pretty inefficiently against it and still be fine. So the main goal for TLO really does seem to be getting rid of the 4th base and just keeping Asuna on 3 as long as possible. Asuna rebuilding that 4th base now, but it's still got a ways to go until it's actually ready to go. And TLO now up to almost max once again. He's got a few more infestors here. He's got Microbial Shroud. He's got Neural Parasite. He's got a bunch of Banelings to deal with these Templar and with these Zealots as well. All the Zealots immediately going down. Fungals on the Interceptors. Some Storms come down, getting some really juicy Storms off. Is it going to be enough, though? The Infestors getting consistent Fungals onto those Templar. I mean, the Hydra count has been thinned out quite a bit, though. This appears to be a pretty meh trade for TLO. Once again, picks up a lot of those interceptors, so that is a bit more in the way of losses for Asuna, but that was not the trade that TLO was looking for that time around.
No, that fungal growth was really nice, but unfortunately, you've got to chain, I don't know the exact number, maybe you do, Pengy, 4 or 5 fungal growths together to really do damage to carriers. They just have so much health, and by the time the first fungal's gone, they're already regenerating those shields. So even though there were some really nice lockdowns holding the carriers in place, the carriers were already where they needed to be for Asuna. So TLO not able to get a really great trade there at the end of the fight. Again, we saw Microbial Shroud, but funnily enough, the Zerg player wants to live inside Microbial Shroud, so that just means it's a very attractive position for the Protoss player to storm on top of, and that's what we saw Asuna doing almost exactly, was waiting until TLO had established his position with the Microbial Shroud on top, and then storming on top of it.
TLO now going for a bit of a tech switch into the Corruptors that he's going to need to deal with these carriers. Oh, that's so many Templar. Oh my god, Asuna has so much gas because he's been sitting on just those 3 bases. And most of what he's been producing has been interceptors, so he's had a lot of gas sitting there ready to go. And having this 4th base up, it becomes a bit of a scary position now for TLO. And TLO, I mean, he's been doing pretty well all game long. That's another decent trade there to the right-hand side, picking up a bunch of Zealots for a couple of banelings. But 4 bases is really where the Sky Toss player starts to feel very, very comfortable. And this is also an extremely difficult position to push into. Denying the 4th base is infinitely easier than killing the 4th base once it's already established. So TLO now, he's got 5 bases. He's got a little bit more of an economic... he's got a little bit of a better economic position, I guess you could say, but he's also lost a few thousand more resources. Let's see if he's able to take a good trade here. The Storm's coming on down. The Corruptors, though, going after these carriers.
Really nice dips, ducks, dodges, dives, and dodges on those Corruptors. They're able to get out of the way of all those Storms. He does lose an awful lot of them by the end, but of course... The Hydra's focus firing down the Interceptors, and again we see a very similar trade to the last game where TLO is going to limp away with a weakened Hydralisk army, a very weakened Hydralisk army, and Asuna forced to retreat as well with no Interceptors on his carriers, only a few carriers going down. Looks like the same trade as last time. Did you see anything different there, Pengy?
Yeah, I mean, really, TLO just, or Asuna rather, just didn't have the damage output to finish off the Hydras. All of these Hydras, the 8 Storms, are so low from the actual Psionic Storm damage, but the Hydras were able to pick off those Interceptors so quickly, and especially with the Corruptors distracting the AI a little bit as well. Just really good trade there by TLO. Asuna just missing a tiny bit of extra damage there. Maybe a few extra Zealots would have been able to cleave through those. One more Templar getting a Storm off would have been able to cleave through those Hydras. TLO going for a very high-risk, high-reward strategy there and paying off in dividends as he now has a pretty commanding position here. Not that much energy on these Templar, forcing them to morph into Archons, and now just a single Storm in this army.
Yeah, and that's a really scary place for Asuna to be right now because the splash damage still exists for TLO. Again, we're going to see Microbial Shroud going down, but he's going to fight outside of it there, forced to back out of that position that he wanted to be in, and now I think we're going to see Asuna actually taking a pretty decent fight here. All those weakened Hydras from earlier didn't quite have enough time to get back up to max health, and that was a very weak fight for TLO, and now we're going to see Asuna pushing forward and establishing dominance just a little bit here as he moves out onto the map. We said a few moments ago that one of the goals for TLO this game was to try and keep Asuna on 3 bases and not let that 4th base go up. Unfortunately for TLO, Azuna's not just on 4 bases, now working on number 5 here at the 1230 position. So TLO is really going to have to start expanding a little bit more. And I can't believe we're saying this. Asuna and TLO look like they're going into what appears to be a fairly standard macro game.
Yeah, I mean, Asuna playing a bit of a weirder opening, going straight into those carriers, but he's showing that he does have the mechanics to back it up. And creep spread for TLO is looking very good now, but Asuna overall, he's done a better job trading. He's about 4,000 resources ahead, almost exactly. And with a 5th base up now, he's in a great spot. I feel like TLO, he is the kind of guy who, in these macro games, prefers to be a little bit aggressive. As we've seen, he tries to break the Protoss's back before it gets this late into the game. But now, he might be forced into a position where he has to throw up 25 scores and just try to play out the 45-minute game that we saw from the Silk here.
Oh, that's not what I wanted to hear here. It's already, I don't know, oh, you're on the East Coast, so it's 7 o'clock in the evening for you, 6 o'clock here for me. If we have another series that lasts another 2 hours, I'm going to feel really hungry because I haven't eaten since my bowl of Captain Crunch this morning at 11 or 10 o'clock a.m.
At least it's 1-1, and it's over after this game, regardless. It's over.
Only one more series to go. We can do it.
Yep. So we won't have to deal with another Sky Toss TLO game if this one goes super long. Asuna, though, he's playing very cautious. He's only ever moving out to take new bases. And I think that's a decent way for him to be playing. Generally speaking, as the Protoss, you're trying to do a little bit of damage here and there because the Zerg is setting up defensively, getting into that position. But that's not how TLO's been playing. He's been playing very aggressively. So Asuna, it behooves him to just sit at home like this. I mean, he waits for a little bit of a push from these Hydras, comes on in, gets like 6 Hydras for free. That's a pretty big deal when now we're looking at 4,500 resource discrepancy is the word I'm looking for. And yeah, I mean, TLO, he's doing what he can to break this, but again, shield batteries powering these Zealots to just cleave through the right-hand side at the 1 o'clock, I guess. And again, TLO's going to be able to win this fight out, but trading Zealots for Hydras is always going to be good for Asuna.
It is. Now, one big change we've seen right now is that TLO, formerly only on about 3 or 4 Infestors, is now up to, I believe, yeah, going to go up to 11 Infestors here very soon. Of course, he's got that Neural Parasite, he's got that Pathogen Glance from earlier, so those Infestors are going to be quite terrifying if they do ever engage in the battle. But right now, a very scrappy battle. There's the Neural Parasite in the middle of the map there. A lot of carriers going to go down. Some Void Rays getting picked off as well, but the Hydra count's still quite low. Big storms onto the Corruptors, though. TLO losing an awful lot.
Yeah, the Void Ray count's a little bit too high. TLO is able to pick off most of the carriers on that side, but there's still 3 more to the south. Asuna has lost a lot of supply, and TLO has maintained his Infestor count, which is pretty important, but I don't think he has enough for more than 1 Neural Parasite right now. He's going to go for it onto this Archon. He's going to try to focus down a couple of those Templar. Sick moves, actually. That 1 Neural Parasited Archon focuses down 5 Templar. Incredible trade there by TLO. Is it going to be enough, though? That's the question. 56 workers for Asuna means that's an additional 18 army supply, even though the army supply or the total supplies are pretty close to even. And TLO with some cute moves in